And we are live. A glorious good afternoon to each and every one of you.
Good afternoon.
Welcome to We the People. We come to you each and every Thursday in the 2 o'clock hour just to remind you that you have power and say so in your local government, especially in government at all areas, state, local, and the feds. Malcolm X once said, education is our passport to the future, for tomorrow belongs to those who prepare for it today. Government and how it works impacts you 24/7, 365. So we must, it is our holy obligation to get smarter about it. I'm your host, Angela Taylor, and I'm here with my absolute favorite millennial, Michaela McCray, and we have a guest in studio today.
It's already on us. It's already on us.
Oh, how's it? Oh, how I mess up?
It's okay. I'll
Okay.
take it. Am I supposed to introduce the guest?
Okay, well, yeah,
Oh.
go ahead.
Oh, no.
Have at it, because he's on your side of the table.
No, it's okay. You got it. You got
Okay.
it.
Now, am I supposed to be red or green?
You're red.
Okay, so
Yes.
that explains it.
Yes.
Well, y'all see it.
I mean-
on the other side of the table.
No, it's are you 1 or 2? You're 1 because you're
Yeah.
older.
Yeah.
That's how I remember. I mean, you're older than me.
Just slightly.
Just a few years. Just a few.
You're 1-7.
Right. Young buck over here. Young Jedi. What they say? Wet behind the ears.
Okay, but this is our last show before the election, folks. And I want to remind you before we get deep into stuff, is that if you live in the state of Maryland, you can go to the Bowie Gymnasium at 4100 Northview Drive. You can go to the College Park Community Center at 5051 Pierce Avenue in College Park, the Kentland Community Center at 2413 Pine Brook Avenue. I don't have my glasses on. That was a major faux pas. Okay. The Laurel Beltsville Senior Activity Center at 7120 Conti Road in Laurel, Maryland. The Life Covenant Christian Ministries at 15622 Livingston Road in Accokeek. The Rolling Crest Chillum Community Center at 6120 Sergeant Road. The Southern Area Aquatic and Recreation Complex, 13601 Missouri Avenue in Brandywine. The Southern Regional Technology and Recreation Center at 7007 Bach Road in Fort Washington. The Suitland Community Park School Center at 5600 Regency Lane in Forestville. The Upper Marlboro Community Center at 5400 Marlboro Racetrack Road in Upper Marlboro. And last but certainly not least, the Wayne Curry Sports and Learning Complex at 8001 Sheriff Road in Landover, Maryland. Guys, the polls are open until 8 p.m. today. We got to get this one right. So show up and show out to vote. So I'm gonna cut to Eminem and the person who should be mayor of Washington, D.C., James Butler. Mr. Butler, can you tell folks where they can early vote in D.C.?
Oh, thank you, Ms. Taylor and
Michaela,
yes, for having me. It's been a while since I've been here, but I'm so glad to be back.
Yeah.
It's literally shocking that this big day, next Tuesday, is almost upon us. But in D.C., early voting started this past Monday and will run till November 3rd, I believe. You can vote at Sherwood Rec Center. I believe Turkey Thicket is one.
Yeah.
Now, I'm going from the top of my head, folks, so you can also get these on the D.C. BOE, or Board of Elections website. I believe the main registration area at 441 is another place. And they're numerous throughout the district, but I believe that each ward, 1 through 8, has their own centers.
Yeah.
And I haven't committed them all to memory. But you should look up if you're in Ward 5, whatever respective ward you're in, and you can likely find something in walking distance of your home, or certainly in metro distance of your home, that makes it easy to vote. Also, as I think most district residents know and received, the early voting ballots were mailed out some time ago. Folks, don't delay. Get those in the
Yeah.
mail because you want your vote to be counted. It really matters. Even for more than the presidential election, who you elect locally matters as well. So get those in the mail, and let's brace ourselves for an interesting November 5th.
Well, you know
Tuesday.
that the Republicans have been preparing the past 45 to 60 days for laws. They've been funneling. I mean, just throwing everything up against the wall to see what sticks.
Yeah.
You know, to confuse folks. But again, this is a question I wanted to ask a black man, face to face, on these airwaves. Help me understand.
Help us.
Okay.
Help us,
Because,
Lord.
Help us in the house.
because you're an attorney as well. A lot of people, and my grandson even called me yesterday, they do not understand how a convicted felon, twice impeached, person could even enter into the race. Can you explain that to folks first?
So first, there are no constitution, no provisions that prevent that. I mean, and I can't explain it any other way than that. Without being complex and layered in my explanation, the Constitution still allows someone to run for president, even though they've been tried, charged, and convicted with the crime. In fact, it even allows a convicted felon to run the country from jail. So, I mean, that's a conceivable scenario that we could potentially have in this country for the first time. And it's,
400 plus
400
years.
plus year history and 200 plus since the Constitution was written. It's perplexing to me, honestly. But
Yeah.
let me talk a little bit about, as a black man, and how I believe Donald Trump is able to convince various demographics, including many black men who have openly stated that they will not support our Vice President Kamala Harris for a president of the country. So, America, let's look at it. There is racism there, and it's been there for quite some time. I mean, through slavery, through civil rights, through Reconstruction, through civil rights, through even up until now. There's this patriarchal society where women weren't even given the right to vote until, just a little more over 100 years ago. There is this misogynistic society where you can, be convicted of sexual assault in a civil trial and still be okay to run for president and still be running neck and neck with a female candidate that who has openly stated that she would promote women's reproductive rights and make it open and safer for women too. What I believe has happened is you have this vile person, Donald Trump, who's flawed by any measure, and certainly by candidates, presidential candidates' measures. He has stirred a pot, and he's given folks permission to do what deep down inside I think our primal selves want to do. We want to have power to maybe call people bad names and say whatever we want to people. We don't do it typically because we're civilized. We have decorum. We have respect typically for one another. But I think Trump has empowered and stirred the pot enough that people can feel it's okay. So let's talk about specifically black men. I think black men, they relate to Trump in some ways in that he has this vileness that I think we all want to allow to surface. And I think in some ways, and I'm more doing a psychological analysis than anyways.
That works for me.
I think it probably comes down to that.
And you already know I'm ready.
And I will say my dictorial is in law and not in psychology, but here I am trying my hand at it. I really do believe they feel like they are empowered by Donald Trump to be men. I mean, he gives a lot of locker room type talk. And I believe in some senses, in their subconscious, they relate to Donald Trump.
Yeah.
He now is a convicted felon. I think there's certainly a group of black men that might even like him because of that. He talks like a child in many terms, very simplistic. And I think that also provides this little bit of gravitas toward Donald Trump because he talks their language. I think the pot has been stirred that Kamala Harris disproportionately prosecuted black men. Now, I mean, prosecutors prosecute people. Come on now.
But that's
I mean,
not
that's their
true.
job. But it's certainly not true that she disproportionately targeted black men. But you can say something, folks. You got to keep in mind the average American doesn't educate themselves on their candidates.
Yeah.
So you can say something, and because you say it, it becomes true.
Not only their candidates, but just on the process in general.
Oh.
And I think that's
God.
been taken out of too many systems by design.
Yeah, I mean, because if you take civics out of high school and, you take the history classes, you make them very remedial, even in the junior high and the middle schools, people no longer understand the process. And then you don't appreciate the value of the process if you don't understand it.
Yeah.
So you're okay with giving away your vote, or you're okay with abstaining from voting and being apathetic. Those sorts of things become permissible. But I think Donald Trump has a multi-factor approach to how and why he has attracted the number of black men that has agreed to support him. The vile, the locker room talk. I mean, you see when he was talking about in 2016, grab him by, that is men locker room talk. And, many men, I hate to say it, in America, talk like that behind closed doors. Yeah. And I hope it doesn't surprise either. of you,
America's
ladies,
more
Michaela.
misogynistic than they are
it is.
racist.
Yes.
Yep, absolutely.
Surprise. Let me
ahead.
me know what's
There you go.
I have so much to say.
All right.
This brain just ping ponging up here.
No,
But
I'm with you.
I'm gonna start with a quote that Neely Fuller said, and I love when our elders, because he's still alive. I love when our elders write the voice and the narrative of what's going on today. And Neely Fuller said, if you don't understand white supremacy / racism, everything that you do understand will only confuse you. This quote basically explains the idea that racism is a fundamental issue that influences many aspects of society. He believed that without a clear understanding of racism, one's comprehension of the social, political, and economic issue will be incomplete and potentially misleading. And I said that basically that's what I interpret as what's happening. And I think this narrative should be understood. Donald Trump convictions through the lens of systemic white supremacy should be the foundational narrative that we understand it to be. White supremacy is a global system designed to maintain the dominance of white people over others. One might argue that Trump's actions and rhetoric are manifestations of this system, reflecting societal structures and behavioral influences by the need to uphold white dominance. Trump's legal issues could be seen as part of a broader pattern that reinforces systemic racism and white supremacy. This work emphasizes the importance of understanding these dynamics to effectively address and dismantle them. And we have to view Trump's conviction as an opportunity to highlight and challenge the pervasive nature of white supremacy in American society. Where we are today is there's a group of people that understand wholeheartedly what's happening in American society, and that group is very small. I think I'll do a little play on words of W.B. Du Bois, who said it's the 10%. It's a small percentage of us that are very aware of this system and how it functions. And when you are aware of this system and how it functions, you can clearly see the chessboard game that's being played. And right now, with black men, because America is more misogynistic than it is racist, and it's not hard to deem that as the reality. We
Right.
can look therefore at history when it was an opportunity to stand in solidarity with the suffrage of us as an American people. There was a shifting, there was a switch, and they said, well, we need more rights before the rest of our family gets more rights. And so when we're looking at it from a holistic perspective, this society is just becoming is just producing the fruits of the seeds that it's sown. Racism is deeply embedded in the DNA of America, and because that's not the forefront conversation, we have definitely missed the mark. And I would argue that we did the same thing with Barack Obama. There's no way that you can talk about any situation in America and not talk about racism.
Right.
At all.
I
And when we
agree.
say things like, oh, not the black president, all this stuff, we should be talking about the black president. And that black president can be black, orange, pink, yellow, orange, whatever color.
Yeah.
Because what's necessary is the dismantling of this system. Right now, with the things that I've been researching, it's just like, oh, I knew this, but here's the language to perpetuate it. Although there's a small percentage of us that are aware of the system, there's also a small percentage of people that are controlling the system. And when you do not understand what's happening, what they say, if you don't stand for anything, you'll fall for everything. And right now we're seeing the remnants of not only a misinformed electorate, but just a misinformed society of the true evils that's happening in this country. And when we're talking about being misogynistic, when I listen to people talk about Trump, and I've explained to Miss Angela on multiple occasions, and call it arrogant. Call it what you want, do what you will. There are a lot of people that are ill-equipped to have these conversations, and it shows.
Oh, I agree with you 3,000%.
Most people are perpetuating this what is it? Reality TV perspectives on how government and how society functions, and that realization is a direct connection to how Trump has presented it. In reality, a lot of us do not know how this world functions, and if you don't know how to play the game, if you don't know the rules of the game,
you can't play.
You can't play.
You can't.
So.
And that's what Malcolm
fact.
X said. Let me see if this will work. No, it doesn't.
Okay.
Having fun there.
No, but you said, because I think that's a Martin Luther King quote, correct?
What?
If you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything.
Oh, I thought it was an African proverb, but could be.
Yeah. Well, that's yeah.
We'll give it to him. It sounds like something Malcolm would say.
It does. Yeah.
Yeah, but what really resonates with me after you said what you said was when Mitch McConnell got on TV and said, I forget, this was around George Floyd time. We gave you Obama.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. I just cannot.
Well, can we give him back?
Okay.
and that's why like when I explain of how I feel about this election, I as Black Americans, we need to stop accepting the bare minimum. And I will tell you, because I've been having this conversation, I told you I'm on to this new research as soon as I finish this thesis. Anyway, but the difference in the intergenerational connection and the identity of how we see ourselves in America. And so last Friday, my thesis advisor and I had this conversation about, he was like, your generation is very, did he say privileged? No, what did he say? Entitled. See, look, this is why I have to be telling you so you keep me honest. Okay? he said that my generation was very entitled, and I receive any feedback because my hunger to wanting to know is just that deep. And so I was like, but what do you mean by entitled? Because I'm like, well, how can I subgroup this into socioeconomic status, gender, race? And he was like, no, it's all of y'all. And I was like, oh, okay. Thank you for telling me.
Well, you should know that being around the generation right below you right now.
But see, that's the thing. It's two different generations that we're talking about. So the generation that we're specifically talking about in American society would be the millennials. That's my generation, because the younger generation is they're not able to erect their identity yet because they're not able to vote. They're not able to have any rights outside of their parents.
And these are Gen Zers.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's break it down. So that's the thing. Certain people understand that there's two different generations and something.
Millennials and Gen Zers.
Right, but it's something that I exposed of why this research is so necessary right now. Huh?
I was whispering. I said I still think it's both, but continue.
Well, and that's why this part of it is very important. For the first time in our history of us being able to analyze data, one generation has produced two generations. It's never been like that before, right? So my mom's generation produced my generation, which are millennials. So she had us in her early 20s, and then also in that generation, they produced when they had kids,
Gen Zers.
they also produced Gen
exactly.
Zers, right? In that
So it's my generation, Gen Xers.
right, who has this is the first
produced
time
the
Millennials and,
Right.
and the Gen Z.
and this is the first time that it has ever happened.
Okay.
And so most people group us all together, but technically we're two different
I do as well. I have to be
but
honest,
technically we're two different generations, and this is how I explain it, because I was talking to a gentleman the other day and he was just like, are you serious? My generation, which are the millennials, we understood what life was before technology. We integrated technology. The younger generation only understands
Only
technology.
Okay, so that's true. Yeah,
Right.
That's a good point.
And so it's a big difference in how you function and how you, and so anyway, because I got to wrap this up. And so when I was talking to my professor about it, he was like, well, Michaela, I really think you're onto something. But I was like, well, please tell me more of what you mean by like entitled. And he was like, well, your generation really does not understand how things works. And I was like, really? We don't? Okay, talk to me. And he was like, well, you all wanted minimum wage to go up, but then you don't understand that with minimum wage going up, the price and value of things are higher. And so then I was like, well, because you taught me social science and statistics, and I love that I can, throw this back on you. The equation of how much things cost is still the same. And so,
agree. I would agree.
Right. And so when he's talking and he's just like, you all want more, what do you say? You want more rights, and you also want the same amount of protection, right? Because when you're looking globally at different societies and how they function, and so then I told him, I said, see, this is where my problem lies, right? The expectation is for us to stay in the parameters of what's already been deemed acceptable and socially and a social norm. I believe that we're challenging the system in its entirety, forcing us to be honest about things that are happening, forcing us to have conversations that are necessary. But the part about it is, because I say this, each generation comes with something to help make the world a better place. I guess we could just say it that simply. And I said one thing that the younger two generations, I can definitely say is, we're coming back to this lost art of dreaming and having belief in these dreams, right? Because I went down this narrative and I was like, okay, is the American dream attainable for everybody, or is it just a certain amount of people that can get it? So that's a whole nother TED Talk. But when I was talking to him, I was like, you gotta want more for the latter generations, and you have to empower them to want more.
You have to empower them.
When the younger generation says to me, well, what can we do? We can do whatever it is that we want to do. And so that right there, that power in believing that you can do something. And I took that from you, Miss Angela, when you're like, people really don't know the power that they have. I believe they've been conditioned to not know the power that they have, and not just in our global
Personally and in general.
but not even just in politics, in every aspect.
I said personally. I didn't say
Right.
politics.
Oh, well, I was just meaning like because we've only been talking about like government,
Right.
but like
Gotcha.
I mean in every aspect of your life, whatever you want for yourself, you can have it. Like when people say to me like, Michaela, oh, you sound naive, I'm just bold enough to believe that I can. And wouldn't we want to work hard at making something better than not doing any work at keeping things the same? And I believe this election is exposing that, because for the first time, cross-generationally, the conversation is there.
It's happening.
And so,
Absolutely
It is.
yeah, so I thought it was powerful, but I said a lot. So.
No. But very insightful, very good stuff too.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I do believe that's what millennials are bringing.
Yeah.
They're really questioning and forcing systems to change.
Because
But we need that.
right, and,
Yeah.
and never before has it happened, and I think it's the power of that one generation producing two generations, right? Because that cross-generational, I say this often, where we've gone wrong, not even just as a community, but as a society, we're all starting at the same line. And that's why I say it's not even about race or social economic status. We all are beginning at the beginning, because each generation is not passing on the baton. We're trying to preserve. They're trying to preserve within the generation instead of saying, okay, I spent 60 years doing this, right? And I think this is the power of Ella Baker, and I'm obsessed with her. But when you have the younger generation connected with the older generation, you have all of this wisdom, and then you have all of this energy, innovativeness, molding, and connected. I believe is a lot that we can do. But because of ageism, because I'm talking to a lot of older people now, and even with you, Miss Angela, they're just like they're trying to push us out. I believe that was orchestrated to keep us socially where we are, as a people or as an entire nation. So yeah, that's my TED Talk for today, y'all.
Oh no, it's very good too and insightful.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, my thinking is that in my generation, we don't want to change, but change is good.
Oh, sure.
Too many folks in my generation, and I would even say 60, 55 women, 20 years from 55 to now. We don't think things that can change. We're afraid of change. Change is good.
Change is so good.
Yeah.
You should embrace it.
That is the only thing that is you can't stop it.
Yeah.
Right.
You absolutely can't stop it.
And it's really interesting.
And it's necessary.
It's really interesting that you say that because when I'm doing all of these qualitative studies of asking questions, a lot of it is that, Miss Angela. It's just like, well, what we did was right, and what y'all are doing is wrong. And it's like, but can we honestly say that? You know, from whose perspective are we even analyzing that data?
Right.
And I think that this younger generation is just like, we watched our parents struggle. And I don't care socially where you are.
Right.
Struggle has just been
struggle.
it has just been deep.
Pain is a gift nobody wants.
Exactly. And so whether it's economic struggle, whether it's mental struggle, whether it's whatever it is.
Yeah.
And we're now at a point where because the other characteristic that they say about the latter two generations that we're emotional, that we're sensitive and weak. And so then I sat with that because I didn't think sensitive was a bad thing.
Yeah.
But when I sat with that, it's like, oh no, because we'll tell you how we feel about something. We'll tell you we'll sit down and
Oh, you're vulnerable.
oh, okay.
Which is a great characteristic.
I think so too.
I think
Quality to
sensitivity is. I think I'm sensitive. A lot of other people don't, but I do.
Oh, I'm very in tune with
I am, but I kind of mask it.
Yeah.
Probably more than I should.
Yeah.
I'm very in tune with my star players, and you'll know how I feel more, but quicker than I'll know how I feel. Okay, but I believe that it's necessary because when you're looking at the characteristics of the generation and you're looking at how the generation is shifting, it is very much so. If the generation is saying like, we don't like how this feels, you know, we don't want to do this, we don't want to work 40 hours a week and bring home X amount of dollars, and the government takes X, and which was necessary because I said it. However anybody feels about it, it was these latter two generations that pushed the needles for minimum wage to be higher.
Minimum wage for at-home work.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
all have done a lot that other generations should have pushed forward.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean,
Or we're
really.
afraid to
so,
push.
Yeah.
And we're afraid to, honestly. So I really applaud you for that. When I do believe when people talk about the week, and no one wants, I have never met a human being that wants to be described this week.
Yeah.
I just think generations like mine, Gen Xers and yours, baby boomers, Miss Angela,
Yeah.
I just really believe they describe it as weak because they have a different approach. Like, to me, we would go fisticuffs. I probably would still do that today if someone offended me the wrong way.
Hashtag me too.
But no, I mean, and I'm just being very honest
would.
about it. But the truth is, your generation, you all just have a different way of handling it. It doesn't mean you're weak. It doesn't mean you can't handle it. It just means that our generations don't understand differences and appreciate how differences can be just as effective. That's all it comes down to.
And
you are
that's-
not weak.
Oh, look.
At all.
Look, it was projection. Well, let's talk about a little bit of psychology. And that's why I was so grateful for being in the space, because the conversation came about from a 15-year-old, a 16-year-old, and then 3 women between ages of 50 and 55, and then I was the only millennial.
Okay.
And the way that the conversation was presented and how the young, and so the Gen Xers were like, we would have never talked to our parents like that. And I was just like, but look at how your relationship is with your parents now. And so then they're just like, but it's disrespectful. And I said, anything that challenges the norm, you all deem disrespectful. And that, I believe, is a social thing.
But there is certainly, I do think, a certain threshold that might come to that.
Well, absolutely.
Like my mom has never heard me use profanity. My mom is, in her 80s, and I've never used. I do hear some of it, so it doesn't mean it's all disrespectful, but it means that certain things that even people in your generation would describe disrespectful.
Oh, absolutely.
So there are thresholds. So I'm saying to this broadly, it depends on what they're talking about.
Okay, here's my turn. Okay.
I love this. I love this. This is super helpful.
Yeah. No. Communication, baseline for communication from every book I've ever read and from my own personal experiences. 55% body language, 38% tone of voice,
Absolutely.
and just 7% words.
I like this.
Those were the two things that if you violate, to my mind, them the 1 and 2, because the words, I can take whatever
See,
words
we have our
you
baby
throw
boomer
at me.
breaking it down for us for real.
But when you come up to me and you like 7 years old like this and tell me what you're not gonna do where I pay the rent, that's a problem.
Yeah.
That's
100%.
freaking disrespectful.
Yeah.
100% agreed. And there is a clear line of disrespect that we will not tolerate. But I think it goes back to also what you're saying with how Trump has presented himself. The line is so muddy now. The expectation
You're right.
is so muddy. And so that's why it's like, I agree with you. First of all, it's certain things that I would never do. Even if I'm in the right, because it's that respect of elders. I think it's a culture thing. I think it is. But also, when children say things because we have been conditioned, and I think this is why this research is so profound. Because I've been able to see it from all sides of the track. Great, and I'm so grateful for it. My biggest thing is I want to heal us as a people. Wholly, right? And I see one issue that we're having is we're all starting at the same line. Now, when people talk to me and they're just like, how are you, 1-7 and you've done so much and you're able to go, because I'm part of that last generation that sat under the elders. It stopped with us, right? And I see the benefit of it. I'm 27 years old and I can keep a home. I can, function by myself. And I see where those benefits are aligned. But then I'm also a part of a generation that was innovative. I'm a part of a generation that we were able to use our voices and our identities in a different way. And just based on my own experience, I can see with just a certain guidance how profound and powerful that space can be. But if we're all opposing on all sides, then it doesn't help us. But I said all that to say, when we're looking at what we because my thesis is on the decolonization of curriculum, what we value is what we teach. So I've been going down this long, deep road of what do we value? And then it's, well, what do we value as a society? What do we value as a culture? What do we value as a gender? It goes into this muddy thing. Then I'm like, well, when we're looking at value systems, and I see the reflection in the election right now, because it's all over the place. It's nothing cohesive. It's nothing that you can, because when I'm looking at like James Baldwin, Nikki Giovanni, and all of the writers of the time, you know exactly what was happening during that time. We are everywhere and nowhere all at the same time. And so this is just me, and it's just me giving my reflection of what I've been seeing, things I've been hearing.
Information is disseminated so differently now, though. I mean, we really have this world where there's this much there's continuity in the information that we receive, but yet it's disjointed depending on the outlet or medium that you're getting it from. And I think that's why you're seeing all of these angles coming at people. This I'm getting on TikTok, this I'm getting on Fox News, this I'm getting on CNN, this I'm getting on Facebook, this I'm getting, it's a little AI generated, this is got no AI. All of that stuff coming at you confuses everyone.
It does,
and that's unfortunate. It really is.
And the wildest part about it, I see the world in like movie screens sometimes, but you ever the game the ninja fruit game?
No.
Okay.
Sorry,
Oh,
missed
I'm
that
way
one.
too old for that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, there's a game where it's like
Okay.
fruit that's thrown and you have like a sword and you're just like swapping it.
Mm-hmm.
And I realized with critical thinking, which I think is the most incredible thing that was ever created.
Yeah, that we had in school, and that you or two, that y'all didn't.
Well, I did, luckily.
Okay.
Luckily, but and then too, I could see the transition in education and how that happens. But I realized that when people are giving information coupled with this reality TV identity, is how we're functioning the way that we are. And I thought that my research was taking me in another direction, but it's really incredible because. My advisor told me, she said, well, Michaela, basically what you're studying is the integration of technology in society. And I was like, no, I think it's much deeper than that. She was like, no, because when you think about it, anytime upheaval happens in any society that we study, it's the integration of technology. And we're not just talking about smartphones.
Yeah.
We're talking about even with the slave trade. What were they trading? They were trading guns and weapons for people. And so I think where we are right now as a society is we have to decide, what do we value? Where's the line crossed? You know, are we ready to preserve our country? Are we even ready to preserve Earth? Because if we continue down the road that we're functioning, and when we're looking at it from like a society perspective, like case in point with the hurricanes that just happened, right? Everybody's talking about the natural disasters of the hurricane, but nobody's talking about climate control.
Right.
Nobody's talking about fracking. So it's like, do you even really know what the problem is? And do you even know how you can actually help ameliorate that problem with how you vote and how you align yourself politically?
I hate to say this, but maybe we're not meant to be here forever.
Oh, well.
I mean, mankind has certainly
Earth is ghetto.
been the maker of his and her own demise in many respects.
For sure.
And I mean, maybe we're on that trajectory that we're just here for another couple hundred years. And
Oh, I don't even think we have 100, but that was nice. I like how you did that.
I mean, I say that with a
But yeah.
bit of,
I got you.
Humor, but certainly with more truth than
sure.
than humor,
I
and
agree.
in that we might be able to course correct, but I also appreciate the fact we might not.
True.
Yeah.
True.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Says the ones that's a few scores and all this, and
I've got more scores than you, trust me.
I only got one over here. It says the people with multiple scores.
Miss Taylor, I think we'll be long checked out by the time it's all over.
Not fair.
I'm pushing 4 scores. Okay, but here's a question. Oh God. Oh yeah, I wanted you to comment on this as well because I see commercials, especially in the state of Maryland, talking about how cash bail. That somebody's going to do away with cash bail. Because to my mind, and only to my mind, there are a lot of people sitting in jail who had, like, say, $1,000 worth of whatever, misdemeanor stuff. But they can't afford to get out of jail. Can you speak to that? Because these police officers, and I happen to know from folks who are Republicans that they pay people to say the kinds of things that are being said. Can you speak to cash bail? Because to my mind, cash bail shouldn't have never entered into the equation.
Yeah, so we don't have it in D.C., just so you know.
Yeah.
We don't have bail bonds, people.
Yeah.
People are typically released on their own recognizance, or if it's a federal crime, it's handled under the federal statutes.
Yeah.
It does exist. I don't think it should have ever existed in any state, quite frankly.
Right.
It disproportionately affects poor people.
Exactly.
Because if you're rich, you can always you can
you
always
got
get
a
out.
couple
I
dollars and
mean,
get out.
you can have a guy like P. Diddy and offer $500 million dollars when you've committed some allegedly 200 plus heinous crimes. So one, I don't think it should exist. It does exist, but really what it does is it keeps people. It's like slavery in a sense.
It absolutely
It keeps you there because you don't have the financial wherewithal to pay for your freedom, and you're not even guilty. If you think of the Constitution affording you a presumption of innocence,
until you're proven.
yeah, but then you're waiting and you're in jail with the presumption of innocence. Then you got to show up to a trial or hearings, and you're in garb that you're probably not wanting to be in.
Right.
I mean, you have a right to get a change of clothing, but we all know what those change of clothing looks like. They're wrinkled, you know.
right.
And
Exactly.
you know when someone slipped that clothing on right before their hearing or trial. Come on. And to me, it's problematic because it disproportionately affects people of color, black people and people of color.
Would you say that was propaganda when you see those kinds of things coming across the screen and you see folks in, you know, with their little police emblems on saying that it is a good thing? That we should keep people locked up in jail unless they can produce that cash bond? Because that's a lot of commercials coming across.
They may have gotten real people to say it. They may have paid those people. I wouldn't say it would be propaganda, but I would say it's certainly not the truth.
Yeah. Okay.
It's certainly not the truth. I mean, if you do any research into it, you know it affects black and brown communities predominantly, and people should not be able to attain their freedom based on how financially sound they are or are not.
Especially the way this
Yeah.
economy getting ready to go. I don't
I don't know.
advise it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I mean,
kidding?
I was going to ask
Yeah.
you about that as well.
Buffoonery
Yeah.
in the simplest form. And then too, because when we're looking at the way in which society is getting ready to go, and maybe not everybody's able to see it, you know, I probably would say a lot of people have not experienced a Republican presidency in its totality.
Right.
Structured the way, because we have to remember when a president has their presidency, it does not just affect you for 4 years.
Exactly.
Right. And so I can see the setup. Okay. And with the way that the Supreme Court was just packed,
Yes.
and not knowing how the House and the Senate is getting ready to be functioned,
Yeah, that's scary.
tacked on. Right, that's what I'm telling you. Tacked on with possibly or not possibly having a dictator. I don't advise you to leave your life in the hands of a system, of an institution that has never valued you at all. And so that's why
Say that again for
Oh.
the people in the back,
Was
please.
that
That
a
whole thing.
drop mic moment?
Yes,
I love
it was indeed.
No, when you understand how the government is actually set up, and then too, because when it comes down to Trump, when I look at his policies and who was influenced during those 4 years, now we've had a 4-year reprieve, quote unquote. The things, so it's kind of like a what happens, a draft or when you're writing a paper, you do your original draft, your rough draft. His first 4 years was his rough draft, right? We had a 4-year reprieve to get our stuff together, right? And now it's like, okay, here's the test, here's the final exam. Now we need you to write up your actual policy of what you're gonna do. All of that put together could essentially, you know, I don't want to manifest that, but create a very destructive society, essentially. And so if black and brown people, which you're absolutely right, and there's an incredible documentary, 13, on Netflix that really explains to you how the criminal justice system is, how it functions, and who's profitable of it, private industries, and just how when you're talking about a new form of slavery, you know, the new Jim Crow, and how we fit into that system and its society. So if the very safeguard that you have that gives you the very safeguard that's implemented to keep you within your rights and your identity through the Constitution is taken away, then we have literally given them the very recipe to take us back to slavery. And I don't think I can say it any nicer way than that, unfortunately. And so it comes down to the ill-informed electorate.
Yes.
And when they don't understand, because it behooves me when people don't like to talk about history.
Or politics or religion. The only way you're going to have a solution to a problem
gotta
is to talk about it.
Well, I think the power of history is all of that.
Yeah, you're right.
And that's why when people just be like, well, what did you study in college? Everything. And that's why I say, because when you look at the history of anything, it's literally the blueprint of where you came from. And if you're so ever clever, you can literally create the blueprint of where you're going. And right now, when I'm looking at the policies that are being argued about, well, actually, I take that back, because unfortunately, policies are not being argued about, which
At all.
which is blowing me. We're arguing about who got the better master at this point. And all I'm telling you is I'm trying to be free from the government completely. But you know, when we're looking at it, people really have no idea what's going on. And what it kind of reminds me of is the you remember historically the like the grandfather clause, and like when they'll say like read this, and when they couldn't read, they were literally you seen Fences?
Yes.
And you saw how when he went down there and he just signed the paper, but he couldn't read what it was, and he literally, gave his brother away.
Exactly.
That's exactly what's happening. When you have no idea what's going on, and you'll check a box or you'll agree to this, they're really getting over on us in that regard. And so I guess we have to figure out what the problem is, which we know what the problem is, and mitigate a solution if it doesn't turn out in our favor, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I mean, anything can happen.
Yeah.
I'm very concerned about the results. On what we will see.
Because they've been prepping
mean-
for the results for the past 45, 60 days. I'd even say, 90 days out.
Yeah.
Let's start flooding the airwaves, the what you call it, the
Social media?
Yeah, the social
Social media.
with disinformation.
Yeah, a lot of it's been going out.
Yeah, because I look at Elon Musk. Justice Department was getting ready to come down on his butt for a bunch of violations,
Including the $1 million deal where one person, if they signed up for voting or whatever, would get $1 million.
Yeah, but that's even before that.
Before that,
Because first he didn't want to back Trump, but now he's putting everything in the kitchen sink in the back of him because he knows the Justice Department's about to get in his behind.
Well, we have to get to a point where we're ready. Because my mind just be going everywhere. And when we're looking at astrologically what's happening, I don't think anyone is prepared or can prepare really for what's getting ready to happen. Because
What may happen? Let's keep a good thought.
Well, yeah.
well, I mean, we gonna be all right.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
my people, I ain't worried about them at all.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
but I'm worried about the ones who are tiptoeing onto the other side, because when it hits the fan,
They think that they're gonna be on the other side and they're gonna be right with us.
you get caught with that without that "Make America Great" hat on. Then we're gonna see how great America really is.
Exactly.
And so, I mean, because historically we've always had Sambos. We've always had sellouts. Like y'all ain't nothing new. Like
Exactly.
like
No, she didn't just drop the same.
well, they.
But this is
That's
what
such a
really
funny one.
annoys me about folks calling folks like Clarence Thomas
Uncle Tom.
Uncle Tom. And that's not an Uncle
was
Tom.
a hero.
Exactly.
Sambo was the clown.
So we should be calling Clarence a Sambo.
Yes, exactly.
Because he eating colonizer Cheerios for breakfast, and I'm sick of it. But because we have to. I think we definitely have to let the people know. Shirley Chisholm told in one of her speeches, she said a civil war has to happen on American soil. And honestly,
It's happening right now.
You know who said that too? Leonora Fulani.
oh really?
Yeah, she said that.
It's actually happening
but,
right
but
now.
Wait a minute, she came after Shirley Chisholm. So
Yeah.
yeah.
And let me tell you, not surprised.
Women.
Oh, period, Pooh. Because when I tell you,
I would say that you all would agree that America is divided right now. Without the guns and the bloodshed, we have one happening right now.
100%.
Literally.
Yeah.
Absolutely. We had a metaverse
agree.
one happening right now. Everybody arguing within their own right. But like I told you, because right now, you really don't know who's a Trump supporter, and you really don't know who's
Harris.
I forgot the lady's name. Or who's a Republican, who's a Democrat, who's on the fence, or anything like that.
Well, let it be known
Yeah.
hereby over the airways, I am supporting Kamala Harris.
I'm in favor. I'm in favor of democracy.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah,
At the end of
that's
the-
it. That's it.
At the end of the day,
or not.
first of all, a dictatorship ain't gonna go well with my generation. So I'm gonna tell y'all good luck in advance. First of all, we can't even get them to do nothing. So good luck if you think you get ready to get them to do anything. But anyway, I'm gonna let them. I'm gonna let them think. The man done told them that they entitled. You think these entitled kids get?
Oh,
Anyway.
gonna register for the draft. You gonna register them automatically through the school system, but you think they gonna show up?
I'm just asking. We can't even get them to go to school or clean their room. You think you're gonna get them to fight in a war? But I digress, honey. But I said all that to say, once we get the results, right? You're going to see the identity of people. We cannot act like hashtag January 6th did not happen.
Exactly.
And I talked to a DC police officer, which was, you know me. I'm just really in this researching thing. I just love talking to the people. Sure. And so when he was explaining, he was like, you had to see how they formed and what their formation is. I said, yes, because while we out here talking about let the revolution be televised, they up there in the cupboards and doing their big one, you know, in the dark web and, you know, formulating their plans and things like that. While we're all not everybody, but while we're here trying to function properly. But Malika said something to me that really has been resonating with me. White supremacy only knows two things. That's money and bloodshed. That's it. And so that's why I've been saying, like, we can vote. I think the most incredible thing that we're going to see on November 5th, which is something that's going to make all of our hearts smile. We're going to have a record number of people voting.
Yes.
There's no way we can't because the conversation is too profound.
Yeah.
So that's going to be a great thing. So that means with us having a record number of voters, that we're going to have a record number of people that are listening, aware, and paying attention.
Yeah.
And we have to decide what do we plan on doing with that, and how do we plan on mobilizing? How do we plan on structuring, designing, and building our country to be what we have been perpetuating ourselves to be, is the greatest nation in America. And so I believe this is where the hope is for me. This is where the faith, this is where the naivete of me is happening.
Little naivete is probably good.
Has to be
Emotionally comforting.
I feel like that's the only way that we can have faith. And when we're looking at it, we're going to have an opportunity to do something that we've never been able to do before. And that's to actually come together as a one American people and fight for the nation that we want for ourselves. So.
Okay. All right. Here's my little
TED
kind
Talk?
of not TED Talk.
I like TED
but
Talk.
I firmly believe that, because you said something to me a long time ago that I just cannot get out of my mind. The church has the women. The prisons have our men, and the schools have our children. So I think, you know, in my plan, in my head, we need to get to these ministers because they can get folks to be in a spot. And I don't care if it's all women, because with all due respect, Mr. Butler,
I
women
appreciate that.
listen a whole lot better than men. In my
Probably
opinion.
right.
But, okay, but that's the starting point. We have to galvanize. We got to get these pastors to know that you can do something. You call your congregation in, and I don't care. You know, we got 20 different churches, 20 different congregations. Let's start that. Get our boilerplate together right there, because you have the power to bring people in. And this is one thing that I really have a challenge with.
Yeah.
With these, I'm not going to say the bad word, with the churches. There's so much power that they have just in, you know, you can just bring them in and let somebody knowledgeable talk to them.
Right.
You know, just, you know, formulate plans, that kind of thing. But why aren't the churches doing that?
Oh, who you throwing that question to?
Both of y'all.
Oh,
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think in some respects, churches might not feel they have as much of an influence. I also think this too. We have to look at the black churches too. When black churches, many of them are anti-abortion, and you've got some of the ministers in the pulpits supporting the candidate that's allegedly anti-abortion.
ooh, pass it to me when you're done.
I'm done because I reserve a little time, but go right
Oh.
ahead. No, I want to hear what you want to say about that.
Oh, because
That's
I
important.
have a lot to
Yeah.
say. So, because y'all know my whole thing with the people in religion. And because I study it, and when we have to really get to the point where we ask ourselves the question, where did it all begin? You know, I go through that whole conundrum. But I said this because I'm born and raised
Are
in
you
the
going
church.
back to 1611?
Well,
You're not going that far back.
No, because
Okay.
I thought we already taught the people that.
Okay.
Just for the sake of the conversation,
Uh-huh.
when Trump was first going through his election process, I was in the church, and I remember the conversations being, "Oh, he's like Cyrus in the Bible, and it has to happen for us to, for God to come back and for Jesus to da 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 da." And I was like, "Oh, that's cute. I like that for y'all." So what you saying? Well, if you're a true believer of Christ, you have to vote for the one that God sent to us. Oh, that's cute. When God tell you that?
Yeah, exactly.
Right. And so when we're sitting down and we're having the conversation, because this is where where one of my biggest issues with the church and religion happens. We always want to put this religious perspective over everything. That's not how society functions.
Right.
Now, when we look at it, if race is not above, right, above the religion, then one always has to influence the other. I often say, and I say it this way because that's exactly what it is: white supremacy as a religion.
Yeah.
Right?
Because it is a religion.
Right, and it is very much a religion. And so when we're looking at the black church has this pervasive identity that is rooted in like the civil rights movement. But when we have to ask ourselves, how did we get there, right? How did we, when we're looking at slavery, how did we get this religion called Christianity if this wasn't the Aboriginal religion of the people? So what happened? So we look at like certain slave narratives that are in the Bible. You ever heard of the Hamitic curse? You have slaves obey your masters. You have the story of Hagar, Sarah, and Abraham. So you have these narratives that perpetuate white supremacy as a religion. And so when you do not have conversations in the church that directly impact the people, then you're not doing God's work. There's no part in the Bible where it tells you that a conversation is taboo. No part in it.
Yeah.
And then we're functioning in a society that directly contradicts the word of God. But where we're getting ready to go in this society is they're wanting to take out the thing that Miss Angela has shared. They want to take out the Constitution, the Articles of Confederation, and they want to implement the 10 Commandments because they understand how powerful the control of religion is for the people. And I challenge any pastor, put them in a ring, let me get them, because the issue that we're having is they are perpetuating a system that was never designed for us. And so
I didn't see that until we had that conversation last year, whenever we had it.
I love it.
But it was so clear to me.
I
when
love
you broke
it.
down.
And because the thing about it is, and I'm a very spiritual person, and that's why I can say the things that I'm able to say. I went through the whole Christianity, looked at the Muslims. I did all of that because I wanted to know, and I was that hungry for the knowledge. And when you're looking at the things in which God was supposed to do or have for the people, we have a church on every corner, and we have homeless people running rampant through this country.
Yeah.
We have people that actually
Peace amongst us,
Yeah.
we have people that actually need help, and they're selling and
They're being ignored.
or they're selling the church is taking their hope, taking their faith, and taking their money. And so when you because the question got asked me, I did my keynote speech at a church in February, and it was my home church, and it was real funny because at the end, now mind you, I went through all the 9 areas of people activity that's being controlled by white supremacy, and the one they got stuck on was religion. And they said, well, how do we get your generation to come back to the church? I said, burn it to the ground. And they were like, Michaela, blasphemy. I said, because y'all are out here spiritually gangbanging. We watched our mothers and our fathers align themselves with this religion, and it goes back to that whole thing I said where we're bold enough to want something different. We actually believed in what you said. And when we believed in what you said and saw what you did and it did not match, we had to decide, am I just crazy enough to go along with this because that's all that I've known? But when we saw our parents be beat down, homeless, lose everything, and the church did not provide or protect or help them, you have to ask yourself as a body of Christ, where did we go wrong? And until that accountability is taken, there's no place for the actual people in the body of Christ. It is a money-making industry. It is where it's when you're looking at the politics of it, it doesn't serve us. And if we're really honest about us as a people, we would not have to beg or ask to have another civil rights movement, because the blueprint is already there. They talk so highly about Martin Luther King. They say all the things that he did and all the things he did not do, but how much of what he has, how much of the good that he did is something that's a foundation in the churches today? It's not, because everyone wants to have the benefits of being a black church, but nobody wants to do the work of being a black church. And how you know that is at no point, and why I decipher between race of when it comes to the body of Christ. How many Caucasian or non-black religious leaders talk about the heinous crimes of the institution of slavery? How many talk about the heinous crimes of the criminal justice system? How many of them? None of them. And so when you're really looking at, and that's the thing, I'm bold enough to challenge them, put them in the ring. I just have questions.
Well, but to your question, if I can piggyback on that,
please.
If you're wondering why the black church doesn't really speak out on these things, maybe that's part of the reason.
What is?
All of the things that you
said.
Yeah. I mean, maybe that's part of the reason.
That is the reason.
Yeah. I mean,
because it's a blueprint. You know, like every church is the same. And when they say, well, no, my church, we feed the homeless and we do this and we do that. And it's just like,
maybe they aren't real sincere about correcting the issues.
Because
I think that's what you said.
Because in order for you to correct it, you have to acknowledge how you were complicit. And if you acknowledge how you're complicit, that means you have done what I'm about to say preaching. What I've been saying that we have done, you have charged
Preaching through a little bit.
You have charged God with the act of being an atheist. Let me explain to you really quickly.
Yeah.
If the church acknowledges where they fail. So if they talk about the sexual violence of the kids, when they talk about the heinous actions of deducing the 10 Commandments, when they talk about the stealing and all of that stuff, then when God is the face of it, that means that God has ordained it, and you have charged God with the act of being unholy. And that's why it's just like, that's why it's just like you want to have the conversation, but you don't want to take any of the
do the work.
And it's just like, it can be such a beautiful space if, for one, people stop ordaining themselves to be pastors and preachers, get out of the institution of teaching. Like, being a theologian should not be a course correct in college at all. I have a huge problem with that, but it's a lot. But thank you for my TED Talk today.
Okay, another thing. Oh God, I forgot my point there, because you that was a lot that you had said right there. But I still go back to, and again, like I said, didn't even make the correlation until I met you and had various conversations with you. But I look at 1611, when King James said, okay, I don't like what's written in here, so let me just tear everything out, get this group of writers in the room, and let them write what I think is acceptable. You don't even know whose word it is.
My version of it.
Okay, and every single Bible I've ever seen has version.
Yeah.
And published.
Published. Yeah.
You mean you making money off the word of God? What is happening?
Yeah, but again, I go back 1611 and to 1620. They had
8 years.
1619. I'm sorry. They had 8 years to perfect. You know how they're going to get this whatever it is into your head to make it make a practice of it.
This script.
Yeah.
It's a script.
Yeah.
And when I ask pastors, I'll be like, well, when was the Bible published? Well, because I remember Joaquin asked, and he was like sometime AD, and I was like, no, a little closer. And he was like, BD, and I was like, no, not even. And I was like, in 1611. And he was like, in 1611? I said, absolutely. I just start asking questions. And once
Yeah.
you start asking questions, and I'll tell when people ask, well, how did you get on this topic? Studying history in college. I came
Yeah.
home and they wanted me to do a lecture at the church. And I was in my meditation and I asked myself a question and I asked my mom and I did not like how she responded to me. And the question was, how is the religion that was used to oppress us now the religion used to set us free?
Yeah, exactly.
And I mean, I got thrown out of 3 churches. I wear it like a badge of honor at this point, though.
Yeah, but I mean,
Yeah.
those are very valid questions. And again, you know, because I'm a person who, I'm a cradle Catholic, and I just couldn't, once I got out on my own, I can't rubber stamp people abusing children.
No.
Period.
Yeah,
and you just shuffle them from congregation to congregation. And you're just perpetuating the problem as far as I'm concerned.
Not enough churches burned down for me to feel comfortable.
Yeah. And then I said, okay, let me get away from the Catholics. Because again, I think I shared with you that I had a priest when I was 15 years old who tried to get with me and was saying, and I thought
wow.
I did something wrong. Because again, back in
The civil guilt, I mean, from that for
well,
doing
you know,
nothing wrong.
Yeah,
you
but
know.
again, you know, the priests were here and everybody else was here because that's when that white supremacy as a religion kind of resonated with me. I think about my history, and this was a white man. So I said, well, let me get away from this now that I'm not living with Cecilia and Cyprian. I can do what I need to do. So I went to another church, black-headed church. Same thing happened. I'm saying, let me just not go to church.
Yeah.
How about that?
And it's crazy because most of our young people, their first sexual violence happened in the church.
Oh wow, that's
There was
such a shocking.
It was a post on
But
social.
that's the truth.
And I don't disbelieve it. Yeah, it's just
And
shocking.
how it presented itself was, it was a post on social media that said, I was like, the post was like, I was 7 and it happened in the church. And then you go to the comments, and I mean, I think it was every bit of 40,000 comments.
Wow.
And it was like, I was 9 and it
Is
was
this
the,
on Instagram or?
oh, it was on Facebook.
Oh, Facebook.
It was like, I was 9 and it was the choir director. I was 9 and it was the choir director's son. And it was like, when you really look at how our society is playing, because when they asked me, they was like, how do we get y'all back? We're not coming back to this. Are you kidding me?
Exactly,
Like,
because it's happened too much.
yeah, and when I tell you, and now my church was the oldest church in Wilmington. I'm talking about, we had millionaires at my church, and so
Christiana Square, where is it?
North Carolina.
Oh, Wilmington, North Carolina.
Wilmington,
Okay,
North Carolina.
okay.
And when my mom was the Sunday school teacher, and in order for any of my friends to hang out with us, they had to come to church with us. And so I was
Right.
in church Sunday, Wednesday, Friday, and Saturday as a child, whole time. I can tell you the Bible inside and out, okay?
Yeah.
And
Not me.
and when we got a little older, conflict started happening. My story wasn't sexual violence, but my story was my original wounds are spiritual wounds. Like when you're right, when you believe in this religion, when you believe in this faith, and it's hard for you to compartmentalize with this leader being this person, and I'm just supposed to forgive you. It's just a bunch of a lot of mess when you really sit down and think about it. And so when we moved from the church died. It literally died. Now when I go back, when I'm summoned back, it's just a bunch of old, bitter, worn down, miserable people. And it's just like, this is church, and you think people want to come in and do this, and it's just like, no. And so when they pulled me aside and they wanted to talk about it, and I was just like, y'all need to stop playing. Like, the stakes are too high at this point. And it's really unfortunate, because I do believe that our people need to have a connection to the spiritual source, a higher being. But the way that it's being taught is
it's not
pervasive,
good.
it's controlling, it's destructive, and we need to do better.
Yep.
Well, this conversation has taken a lot of
Oh, yeah.
arteries today.
I love when we do this because it's in order for us,
But it's
necessary.
good.
yeah,
It really is.
in
good,
order for us
yeah.
to really deal with society and how it's not, we're not a monolithic people, and it's not easy. It's not simple. It's like let's have the conversation. Let's
No,
challenge
I
the
think
norm.
I think you're right. Yeah,
And we appreciate you.
I appreciate both of you as well. Yeah.
Okay, because we're going into the disco version.
Already? Oh man.
Yep. But I just go back to want to put my cap on the Bible religion piece. Is that again? Once you shared that with me, once I learned that, it's very hard for me to go back to, taking it as it's taught. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, but I do know it's two places I go in the Bible when I go. Okay, it's Psalms because I love
so I knew you were
going to
say
joyful noise.
Noise, absolutely.
I absolutely
But they're songs, they're poetry. They're good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And,
they say good things too.
And Proverbs, because for real, that's how I deal with kids or generations below in my community. I've always done that. Those have been my sources because I could never make sense of. I did read Genesis, and once I got through Numbers, I said, I'm not doing this.
And the irony of it, though, those are the two chapters that are plagiarized. Those are two chapters that are literally copied and pasted because it's from the hieroglyphs. So
really,
yeah, that's why I said the two.
But you can still like them, though, right?
Well,
No, meaning those are the two chapters that are from the original spirituality.
Oh,
They're from the
okay.
hieroglyphs.
Okay.
Yeah,
Right. So it's good.
They're the only two that no one ever argues about. You don't ever hear any controversy on Proverbs.
Yeah.
A fool and his money will sure depart. That is facts.
It's
so
factual.
so it's the African spirituality part of it, and
Okay.
so that's where we reside. But when you start to look at the other things, and when you look at
looking at the other things.
well, I'm just saying
Yeah, I know.
when you cross compare, when it shifts and it changes, then Proverbs and Psalms are in all of biblical text. So it's in the Quran. It's in it's
very
the
prominent.
structure.
Yeah.
Well, now I feel better about it. 'cause
Well-
at first, I really never felt
No,
bad.
Proverbs is my favorite chapter, and the Proverbs 31 woman is my favorite person in the Bible.
yeah.
So yeah, I agree.
My favorite is Proverbs 18. Life and death is in the power of the tongue.
It
Yes,
is. It really is.
exactly what
Yeah.
you say. Words have power.
They
People.
do. Yes.
Words have power.
And I always-
so do actions.
Yeah.
True.
So
That's
I really
true.
want you all to get
Yeah,
out
that's
there.
the two
And
things that you can never, ever, ever take back. That's words spoken and deeds done.
Deeds done.
Never take
Never.
that back.
Yeah.
So anyway,
Good stuff.
yeah, we gotta get ready to close out this. Well, I'm getting ready to do your part again, so let me not do that.
Oh.
How many days before your election?
Oh. You were sure about to do it.
I was.
Oh, you want me to go ahead and close?
Yeah.
Oh, because I'm not ready. So.
You're not ready to close.
Well, I just have to pull it up. Well, I'll go ahead and say thank you so much, Mr. Butler, for coming. This just seems like such a full circle moment.
Yes,
Yeah,
it
it really
does.
does
3
seem that way.
generations.
Yeah.
Yes.
The man, we
Absolutely.
finally got the man in the studio to ask the question about black men.
Yes, because we.
And I hope I did it some justice.
Yeah.
Oh, you
yeah.
did.
You
Definitely.
absolutely
Good,
did.
good.
That
Yeah.
you could answer it.
Because we know that you've had to have a perspective on it because it directly impacts you and you're connected
And
to
it does bother me too
Yeah.
that those numbers I think are less than they were with Hillary Clinton even
Yeah.
and Joe Biden. That
Yeah.
bothers me.
Yeah.
And I know there's some layers we need to peel back to even
100%.
get more
We could just-
clarity on that.
Yeah.
I think it gives voice and narrative to what Malcolm X said. The most disrespected woman in America is the black woman. The most disrespected person in America is the black woman.
That's true.
But
True.
absolutely.
No
Right
question
around the
about
globe.
it. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's shameful, but true.
Yeah, it is. But yeah, we do. You were at our first show, and so we're very happy
Yeah.
to have you
Yeah.
back here with us. With during such an incredible time in our country's history, and I do believe that this shared space is very necessary. I learned a
Yes.
lot today, and
Likewise.
very grateful for you, Miss Angela, and all that you do having this insight for us.
The lady that doesn't age.
Okay, because we're a little fine wine over there.
Absolutely.
I love it. But before we close today, know that there's a lot of value in our broadcast. Please go to youtube.com/@AngelaTaylor4119 and hit the live tab, like and subscribe. Make it a point to take time to review the broadcast. Share with your friends because no one is going to save us but us. So with that being said, we need you to count your blessings instead of your crosses, count your gains instead of your losses, count your joys instead of your woes, count your friends instead of your foes, count your Smile instead of your tears. Count your courage instead of your fears. Count your full years instead of your lean. Count your kind deeds instead of your mean. Count your health instead of your wealth. And by all means, count on God instead of yourself. We have 4 days, 9 hours, 45 minutes, and 12 seconds until the next election. I'm M Squared.
And I am 821. Remember, attitude is absolutely everything. And we have to take an attitude of action. The soul of this country is on the ballot. Democracy is on the ballot. And you might think you hate women worse than you hate your freedom, but I promise you, if it don't go your way, you won't. So anyway, I'm not going to get into that TED Talk because we're supposed to have been gone a few minutes ago. But very, very seriously, people, if you don't show up, you're voting. And I'm talking particularly to them Jehovah's Witnesses that don't believe in voting. Is that them? Yeah, I step on feet. I don't have no problem with that. But let me just get out of here and say that I truly do believe that there is good in this world. There is good in you. So I challenge you to go out there and be the good. It's 821. I'm out.